And we are live. Welcome into the Fieldhouse Files post-game show after the Indiana Pacers get the Game 2 win here Tuesday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, 123-115, the final in that one. So they did exactly what they needed to do with home court advantage for the first time in more than a decade. They took care of home court advantage, and now the series shifts to Milwaukee. Game 3, a little bit later once again. They had 2 days between games 1 and 2, and they have 2 days between games 2 and 3. It's not till Friday, and it's another unusual one, guys, in that Game 3 is on NBA TV again and ESPNU. A lot of unusual stuff there because of the NFL draft going on, taking over ABC and ESPN. So once again, the Pacers sent to the back burner in terms of national TV. But again, locally, it will once again be on FanDuel Sports Network as well. But a very fascinating game 2, one that the Pacers had handled for much of the game, but it got awfully close. It got awfully scary there late in that one as we saw the Bucks have that 13-0 run. It was a combination of the Pacers giving up offensive rebounds, which led to additional shots and scores from the Bucks, and the Pacers went on a drought. They didn't score for over 3 minutes. It was on Antetokounmpo attacking the basket as Pacers didn't have any answer for him. That wall did not stop him whatsoever there late in the game. And then Bobby Portis, of all players, he led them in three-point shooting, 6 of 11 from three-point range. He finished with 28 points, second leading scorer, only to Giannis in this one. And then how about Nembhard? I love it. Selfishly, I will say, because I wrote about him today, a big feature at fieldhousefiles.com about how he relishes the big shot. And on top of that, he does not want to just be pigeonholed to being an elite defender and to being a defensive stopper. He wants to be and is proud of being much more than that, especially on the offensive end. And so what did we see him do? First, it was Siakam knocking down that three-point shot that they badly needed. But more than that, then it was Nembhard following it up, and that was truly the dagger in what was this 123-115 Pacers win here on Tuesday night. They got those back-to-back threes, finished the game on an 8-2 run, and avoided trouble there. As you said, Bob, yeah, it got a little testy several different times. Just two teams that like to chat. And I didn't like, to your point, Bob, early on in the game, when there was that unnecessary, I'm not even sure it was an altercation, but chirping, I would say. What was it? Gary Trent Jr. and Ben Mathurin got that double technical in the first quarter, and then later in the game, it was Siakam and Bobby Portis. Both one was with 2 minutes left in the first, and one was just over a minute left in the game. I think also, and this goes for both teams, too much time spent on the officiating, too much chatter, too much taking away from the basketball and putting their bandwidth, their thoughts into negativity. I'd like to see both teams improve upon that. But so much I want to cover here on this Fieldhouse Files live post game show. I do one of these for every single Pacers post game playoff game rather, and I have for the last couple of years as well. They've been a big hit, so I appreciate those joining me, and it was fun, especially last year as we kept going with so many playoff games going into the conference finals. I know fans from Kokomo that would listen on their way home, Fort Wayne, I think south to Evansville. And then, of course, if you catch this late or want to listen again or whatever, it'll be up on the podcast shortly after we finish this live, which I'll probably go about 30 minutes here tonight on this Tuesday. Jules just getting ready to drive, so I'll listen. But what a game. There you go. That's the perfect example of someone I assume is at the game, wants to listen here on their way home and get some analysis and get my thoughts on what transpired. The fan continues. There's no love lost. The double technicals early on. Yep. And bring on game 3. That'll be fun coming up Friday. You're exactly right. I think it's only going to get worse in terms of the emotions and becoming testy, as several of you guys have referenced here. I mean, Ty loves to yap talking about Halliburton. He comes from that WWE nature, right, where everything's a storyline and everybody's against each other. And maybe we should get into this, but the fact that it definitely helped, I think, motivate Ty, the fact that that athletic story came out today where a handful of players anonymously voted him the most overrated player. First of all, and I used to work at The Athletic. I've done that poll before. That was back in, I want to say, 2018 and 2019. Most of the questions are a lot of fun. That one I didn't enjoy asking. There's like a stock of 30 questions or so, and you try to get as many players as you can to answer as many questions as you can. That one was tough to get players to answer. Worst official was a tough one. And worst coach. I don't like that one too, because I mean, keep in mind the average length of a player's time in the league is like 3 years. That means they'll play for like a couple coaches at best. They don't have a full understanding of the league. Now, the veterans, all the name players certainly do. I don't like those questions. What I enjoyed was something like biggest motivation, one rule you would change if you were in charge of the league, one biggest irritation in terms of officiating, because I think if fans want to understand how the players feel about all that. Maybe best coach. Who do the players admire most? Was it the Team USA coach? Was it a coach that just won a championship? There's interesting things to do it, but I get, unfortunately, why the negativity brings out the headlines, the comments, the tweets, and such. And so, guys, I can tell you, no doubt Tyrese not only saw that, but used that as motivation. I guarantee he had something like in his locker on his phone reminding him of that. And on top of that, I should mention one of the individuals in his 4 seats sitting courtside was his skills trainer, Drew Hanlon, who sends him motivational texts throughout games at halftime and such and before games. So no shortage there. And then, of course, Ty played a much better, more complete game. He had the assists in game 1. And in this one, he ultimately finished 21 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists, in addition to everything else that he did. Ryan says, what's up, Scott? Thanks for doing these. Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy them. I love the interaction. I think the challenge for me on my YouTube page is it's so dominant by Fever fans that I don't think this sends out to the algorithm to as many Pacer fans as I'd like, just because I'm caught between Fever and Pacer fans on this channel. And Fever season kicks off coming up on Sunday. I'll be there at practice. It'll be great to be around them once again. The team was at the game tonight as more and more players make their way to Indianapolis today. A couple of rookies arrived. Sophie Cunningham arrived. Caitlin, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, the big 3, the foundational pieces. They have been there. And so, yeah, things get going here soon on that. Just Jules, I wish I was at the game. I'm in New York and watched the game. Awesome. That's really cool. Appreciate your clarification on that, because we do have a lot of fans that jump on here and listen to this on their drive home throughout Indiana. Carnage said big shots by multiple guys when it mattered most. Yeah, absolutely. And that again comes from that experience too. And guys that the moment is not too big for them. It's not surprising to me that it was Siakam who's won a title and Nembhard who's had several buzzer beaters, who loves big shots. He made it like 5 steps in front of where he made the game 3 winner over the Knicks there over on the left arc. I thought that was absolutely notable. And Nembhard in this one finishing with 17.6 assists, 3 rebounds. Again, I think back-to-back 17-point efforts, solid at both ends of the floor. And again, he was one that had the defensive assignment in guarding Lillard this game. And that's the other big thing in the overriding storyline that dominated this one, certainly, was the return of Damian Lillard. He came back, and I give him all the credit in the world. I was stunned he was able to even play in this series. And, you know, some of us, even that NBA TV report that when Doc Rivers first heard about this, he assumed it was career ending for Damian Lillard, just because that's kind of what it's been. We don't have enough data on this injury. And I do got to believe they had a lot more info and a lot more handle on this, maybe even got started on treatment on this before they made it public, because I was stunned to see Lillard go out there and play 37 minutes despite not doing anything reportedly until like 4 days ago. I know he's a competitor. I know he's a veteran, an experienced guy with great determination, but I was stunned to see him play 37 minutes, second most minutes on the team, only behind Antetokounmpo. That was stunning to me. And also more minutes than any Pacer there. So that's another indication too, by the way, of Rick Carlisle and his staff having a good handle on players' minutes, able to keep them pretty low. I mean, Tyrese played the most at just 35 minutes. That means he sat out 13 minutes in a playoff game, keep guys fresh. And that's a tribute to the bench and the level of contributions that they are able to make. and get these guys a blow. And then in doing so, while their numbers are less because they're playing fewer minutes, at the same time, they can get more out of those minutes. And especially the way in which the Pacers want to play, that fast pace and such, that's critical. So a positive right there to turn to. What a stressful free game that was until the final 5 minutes. Yeah, you're right. It was stress free until then for Pacer fans. MK Sinks, I was there to see it in section 224. Were the texts given too loosely, you think, or were they truly warranted? Great question. I think the ones early on were certainly not warranted. No need for that. That's where you give teams warnings. Hey, guys, none of that. We don't want any of that. Let's keep it moving. I'm not handing out double techs, mostly because what if those players get another tech later in the game? Then they're rejected because you wanted to just set the tone there. 2 minutes left in the first quarter. So I was not a fan of those. You got to realize emotions are high. Guys are going to talk. There was no shoving. There was no pushing. There was no physicality between them at all. Again, we don't know what was said because we weren't down there. But it didn't seem to rise to the level I thought of double technicals. Nor did I think the additional one was really. Later in the game, we had Siakam and Portis. Again, we don't know what was said, but I didn't see anything physical that warranted it. If anything, you'd give another warning this time to Halliburton and Lillard, which started it with them yapping back and forth. But that was not it at all. They gave it to it's kind of like the first person never gets it. The second person always gets tagged with it. Well, in this one, it was the second two, not the first two. I wouldn't have done it. I like Zach Zarba. And he was the crew chief in this one. I also think MK Sinks, there were way too many reviews. What were there, like 4? We don't need all that. Ridiculous. There was a couple common fouls, one that was not upgraded to a flagrant one. Then you had Kevin Porter's foul upgraded to a flagrant one. I just think that's just such a buzzkill. As you're watching these games, it's exciting. It's back and forth. And then it gives free timeouts to both teams. I don't like that as well. I was a huge proponent of replay and trying to get it right and trying to be as perfect as possible. But I think we've strayed too far from that. I would make a handful of things able to be completed by the replay center. For example, if a toe's on the line, you can correct that during a timeout or throughout the game and make it a 2, for example. Or goaltending can easily be done with Hawkeye technology, as we saw, I think, recently. But so many of these things I'm not a fan. I think it takes away from the experience much more so than getting it right is worthwhile. Appreciate the question there. JS says, hey, did Nembhard go to Gonzaga? He did. Andrew went to Florida for the first couple of years and then Gonzaga for the second couple of years. I'm glad you asked about that, by the way, JS, because I posted a long feature today about Andrew Nembhard, including some thoughts from Gonzaga coach Mark Few, who I talked to about Andrew and what he's made of and how the moment's never too big for him. He loves those moments. And again, I thought we saw that there late in the game when he hit the dagger 3, which followed Siakam's triple, which the Pacers desperately needed. They were within 2. The Bucks were closest it had been since the very beginning, and 13-0 run. And the Pacers were able to end it with Siakam and then Nembhard. And then from there on out, the game was in hand for the final minute or so there. I will got to give the Pacers a ton of credit for their free throw shooting. Really sharp, 19 of 19. And they did that while the Bucks, who also got to the line 19 times. So you not only eliminated that, and it was a wash, but better than that, the Bucks missed 6 of their foul shots while the Pacers missed none. So there's 6 points in what was a difference in an 8-point game. Kids, you got to make your free throws, and that's the latest example, I think, in all of that. Doc Rivers should be fired. Man, if I'm Doc Rivers, why would you leave the broadcast booth, Brian? I don't understand that. You're on the number 1 crew in the NBA with ESPN and ABC, Mike Breen on hand. There's your crew. And he's had to be making several $1 million, I would assume, knowing the business. And he came out certainly to get more money, but probably for the chance to coach a generational player in Giannis. That intrigues him. Certainly Dame too, but especially Giannis. But man, it's not been pretty for this Bucks team. And it's tough because I'm in a small market. I cover the Pacers. I understand what it takes and what you go through, but how can any of us watch this and not sit there and say, man, Giannis needs to go somewhere where he has help? They did upgrade the roster this offseason. They did try to do a lot to add shooting and add pieces that would be able to better complement Giannis out there, but I'm just not seeing enough. I mean, when Bobby Portis, your backup center, is your top three-pointer, it didn't pan out well. Kyle Kuzma 0 for 3. Giannis doesn't really take threes anymore. Didn't attempt one tonight. Brook Lopez 2 for 4. That was solid. Torian Prince 2 for 3. And Dame 2 for 8. Good props. You want to give props to Nembhard. And then Anise Smith checked on Antetokounmpo a lot in the second half, along with committee there. But Neesmith to start that second half on Neesmith. And by the way, he had 11 points in the first half, did Lillard. Ended with just 3 points in the second half on 1 of 7 shooting. He was a non-factor there in that second half. So they were able to shut him down, even though Giannis, I mean, they don't have an answer for him, both in terms of size, physicality. I thought they could do a much better job there defending him, keeping him away from the basket where he just flips it over the rim. Like, you got to keep him out of there. He finished with 34 points, almost had a triple-double with 11 oh, crap. Wow, I didn't realize that. 18 rebounds and 7 assists, several of those clearly late because I thought he had about 14 of them. Clearly added a couple more there in the final minutes. And did he tarnish his legacy? I ain't doing that question, Brian. I can appreciate that, but that feels like something for the debate shows that I have no interest in listening to, so I don't have any interest in talking about. And on top of that, that's something you discuss once your career is over, not in the middle of it when you're still coaching. But I appreciate it. Ryan says, I'm an Indiana transplant living in Chicago. Might have to head up to Milwaukee for game 3. Do the Pacers continue to have this balanced scoring on the road? I think so. This is what they are. This is what they are made of. They're built around Halliburton, and they're built with balance, to have depth, to have guys that can show up on any given night. Now, tonight was a little bit more unusual in that, as I included on my At the Buzzer feature at fieldhousefiles.com. I encourage you to check that out if you have not already, and to subscribe at fieldhousefiles.com. The top 6 players on the team, so that's the starters plus Mathurin, accounted for 107 of their 123 points. That's like 89% of their points. So it was a little top heavy, but it was so well balanced. 16 for Neesmith, 24 for Siakam, 15 for Turner, 17 for Nembhard, and 21 from Halliburton plus 14 from Mathurin. So well balanced. Because on any given night, you can get another 8 to 10 from Walker, 12 from McConnell. Obi Toppin could easily give you 10. So that balance is what they're built on. Now, with that said, I don't believe they're a contending roster. I think they still need to consolidate this roster. And you would do so by, say, sending out 3 guys and going to get somebody in their place. And I think that's what could help take this team to another level. Or, again, you see more growth from Nembhard or Mathurin, or Jarris Walker pops into like a fringe all-star. That's really, in my opinion, what this Pacer teams need to get to the next step. But right now, I don't think there's any reason for this Pacers team to overreact or get giddy or overly excited, because they did exactly what they had to do, what they were expected to do. This was not the norm. This is not going out and winning and stealing one on the road to take back home court advantage like the Bucks were trying to do. Therefore, you go into game 3 with the same attitude I think you've had these first couple of games, on top of knowing we got to create our own energy. We're going to be in a hostile environment. Everybody's going to be against us. I wonder what cheers might come out, given the fact that Pacer fans have been loud both in counting Antetokounmpo's free throws 1 to 10 and Bobby Portis and Bobby sucks. I'm not a big fan of that one. I'm not, especially after having Jim Ozarski on my podcast and learning more about Portis' story and all the things he's gone through this year. Like, I get it's a battle, but I trust that Turner's block, who I've written about several times, can be more creative in a chant, which can be more fun as well. Just like these refs suck or whatever. Those aren't fun chants. Get more creative. I trust that they can do that. Another comment here. I had a lot of local friends upset that the playoff game with local team was blacked out. Seems like a disservice. Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on that, and I can explain it for you. First of all, NBA announced that ratings were up 17% from last year. That's a positive. However, we should also note that Nielsen, who measures all this, has expanded how they're collecting data. So there should be more viewers than there were each of the last couple of years, because the pool that they're retrieving info from is larger, if that makes sense. So it should be improved. I think as a whole, if the numbers had not been different in terms of how the data is gathered, just based on my timeline and fan interest, I feel like the overall playoffs are down. Although I have really felt living downtown Indianapolis, I have felt this playoffs. Walking around today, I saw several Pacer flags in homes. I saw several fans clearly walking down the streets of downtown in Pacers gear. And this wasn't 2 hours before the game. This was like 6 hours before the game. So Pacer fans are absolutely tuned into this team and excited about their potential. Now, in terms of the TV, let me try to explain that here. This was a night too where there was 3 games going on. 7 Pacers at 7, a game at 7:30 with, I think that was OKC Memphis, and then another game coming up at 10 o'clock. Well, there's ESPN, there's TNT for your networks, although I think both tonight, I want to say, are on both on the same network. Therefore, there's no empty spot. So they throw that on NBA TV. And because the first round are able to be televised by the local markets, in this case, FanDuel Sports Indiana, the local market gets it if it's not on a true national televised network. That's why, guys, at the beginning of the season, when they announce how many games are on national TV, I don't include NBA TV for that reason, because while other markets can get it, your local market is blacked out of it. So it's not a true widespread audience. But if the game is on NBA TV, it defaults to the local market first. Therefore, and I don't know the exact number, but as executives at the Pacers have explained to me, if it's within about 75 miles or so, it's going to be of downtown Indianapolis, it'll be blacked out. Outside of that, you're still good. I hope that makes sense and didn't get too much sports media nerd and in the minutia there, but that's why it is correct to be blacked out, even though it goes against kind of the common sense, right? That's what makes the NFL so dominant. Is not only is every game more predictable in terms of the timing and the network, right? The Colts generally are on CBS at 1 o'clock. It's predictable. But more than that, it's not like you have a hard time finding them or you have to pay a premium to watch them. And that's something that all these leagues really have to figure out, because the barrier to entry needs to be as low as possible. You need people to be able to be tuned in easily there. Okay. Dion here says Pacers are 3.5 point underdogs coming up for game 3. Not surprised by that. That's kind of what the home team gets, right? About 4 points. So that sounds about right. The Pacers were favored by 6 points in game 1. That was no Lillard rather. And they were favored by 4 points here tonight in game 2. They ended up winning by 19 points in game 1. And then here in game 2 by 8 points, 123-115. So not telling you what to do, but that seems like a fairly good consideration to take the Pacers in that, just given what we have seen from this. I know they're at home court, but what have you seen from here that tells you, hey, the Bucks have a chance to win this series? I don't think anything. That said, though, I'm not sure it'll be a sweep. I do think the Bucks will be able to get one on their home floor. It's just so tough to win a road game. It's tough to continue to beat the same team constantly here without any interruption. And I always feel like you have the most adjustments after that first couple of games, after the feeling out of game 1, some tweaks in game 2. And now, I mean, the Bucks will be back by midnight local time in Milwaukee here tonight. They'll have Wednesday and Thursday to make complete adjustments and figure out what they want to do in terms of utilizing guys. And on top of that, Lillard will have a game under his belt. I thought the first quarter tonight, that was very much an emotional first quarter. I was curious how the Bucks would react, how they would adapt, how they would come out of that first burst, seeing their guy back. Like, they probably too wondered, would Dame ever play again this season for them? And many wonder around the league, is this the final time for this iteration for the Bucks with Giannis, with Dame, with Doc Rivers and such? So that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot that's got to be felt by these Bucks players for certain, in my opinion. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think the Bucks will get one of these next couple. So I don't expect a sweep, unlike Granny Danger here, but I do expect the Pacers, as I did from the very beginning, to move on. They're just too deep, too talented, the better team, no doubt, in this series, in my mind. On a side note, the NBA has 15 players on a squad. Why does the WNBA only have 12 on their roster? Why can't they have 15? Well, they expand. Think about this. The NBA has been around for like 80 years. WNBA is on year 29, I think. So it's still very early. And on top of that, I'm not sure there are that many good players to go around. Something I'll be watching this season, but especially next season with that question is how diluted is the product? This year, you added Golden State Valkyries. Next year, Toronto and Portland. Are there enough talented players? That's 12 times 15, whatever that math is, upwards of 170 or so, let's say, players. And I think eventually they need to add maybe a couple, like not two ways because there's no G League, but players that could have that flexibility, perhaps, and make a lesser contract, kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what you call it, but I would like to see a couple more added rosters, if anything, just for maybe practice or future development. Because take the Fever right now; they already have a max of 12 players. Now, several of those players don't have a full roster, a full guarantee roster spot, I should say. They just drafted 3 players, so that doesn't even include any of them. What if you want to keep one more player but don't have a roster spot? Could there be a player development roster spot? Something like that. I wonder if that will be discussed in the collective bargaining agreement. But good question. I'll have a lot more Fever coverage coming up here and on fieldhousefiles.com. So I appreciate that question. And yeah, you're welcome for the insight regarding the TV stuff there, MK Sinks. Dame playing so many minutes was shocking to me. Danger says, yeah, man, me too. I thought he'd probably play either 2 or 4 stints in the game. And ultimately, he played the second most minutes of anyone in this game. 37. His first stint was 10 minutes. He was the last sub to check out of the game. I was stunned in that one, but I think he had some positive momentum. I think he liked what he was doing out there. And on top of that, players will tell you once they go to that bench and when they're dealing with an injury, they always worry it's going to cool down. And that'll be an issue for them moving forward. That's often why guys will ride a bike or put heat on their thigh or whatever is bothering them. For Halliburton, you see him wear that kind of waistband. Now, I don't know for sure if that's heat or cool. I would assume it's warmth to keep his back warm and loose. But I think that's probably why he stayed out there, because he was rolling and didn't want to go to the bench and squash that. But for him to play 37 minutes, contribute 14 points, and still lose, that's a tough one for the Bucks, because they're not desperate yet. They are now moving to game 3. But they threw a lot on the line tonight and were still unable to get it done. And as I reiterated earlier, really good job by the Pacers in that second half on Lillard. 3 points, 1 of 7 shooting in the second half. So that was well done by them. It was blacked out for me in Louisville on YouTube TV. Thanks for the FanDuel. Thankful for the FanDuel app. There you go, Travis. So that's even further than 75 miles. So that's definitely interesting. And one thing you could try, not encouraging it, but just an alternative option, is if you have a VPN, you could try setting it to Indianapolis if there's an option there. I doubt many have that Indianapolis option. From my experience, it's Chicago and Denver and New York and Atlanta, much bigger cities, but there's a chance that could work, but probably still highly unlikely. So yeah, you need that FanDuel app. Only 5 hours to Milwaukee. Can we bring some Pacers noise to Deer County? There you go. How about those guys sitting courtside? Those are season ticket holders right next to the Pacers bench, I was told tonight. But they were in their hunting gear, having a blast. That's part of the fun when you don't do the t-shirts. I don't like how they bully people to put on the t-shirts. I can tell you for a fact, if I wasn't covering a game and I was going to it, I'm probably not wearing your XL t-shirt. I'm a medium. That doesn't fit me. It's large. I'm probably not comfortable in it. I'm going to take that home and I have them sitting on my floor. I totally get those that want to wear it. Good for you. But here's the next thing I would love to see. Pacers are very clearly going to continue this icy white city edition uniform thing. How about you just make it a whiteout and tell everybody to wear white? Wear your favorite Pacer gear white or whatever. And then you can provide a t-shirt if you'd like. But I think that would be a better alternative here, is just tell everybody what color to wear. I don't like the gold out when you're using the city edition floor, though. That's not a good contrast. If you do the gold out, you got to have your traditional floor. Again, nuance here. I know I'm going deep in the rabbit hole, but that's how I feel about that. Again, the Pacers win tonight, 123-115. Thanks to everybody for joining me here. I want to make sure you're aware, I write at fieldhousefiles.com and the Fieldhouse Files podcast, longest running Pacers podcast. I can't believe I was thinking about this today, guys. 10 years. I started that in 2015. And the funny part about that is when I worked for the Pacers, my first 2 years out of college, I suggested, let's have a Pacers podcast. Nah, we don't need one. We're good. Do people really listen to that stuff? And now, not only do they have their own, but there's a handful of Pacer podcasts out there. But I said, once I kind of got out of that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start my own. And it's been fun to continue on there. So I've done hundreds of episodes there. And I hope you take a look and listen to some of those. Let's talk about the middle two quarters here, because that's what I didn't like in particular from the Pacers here in game two. Very sloppy. It was a rocky. It was adventurous. It was a time where I thought they very much got away from what had been Pacers basketball. They weren't pushing it up the floor nearly as much. They were settling a lot more. The ball wasn't moving near as much. Let me look at these. I want to look at these assist numbers. 7 assists in the second quarter. And in the third quarter, 7 as well. They ended up with 30. So still all about even. But it didn't feel like there was much less ball movement, much less activity, more standing. More settling for a jumper at the end of the shot clock. I thought so, at least. We'll see on my second watch around when I do that coming up tomorrow. But they got back to it a little bit there in the fourth quarter, but it was one of those. This is one I think these guys really have a lot to learn on the film. They can go down and say, hey, look, this worked. This was efficient. We got to keep doing this. Why the heck did we get away from this? And then defensively, they got to improve upon slowing down Giannis. I like the fact that they were able to keep him to just 2 free throw attempts in the first half. Second half, though, a much different story. He went there 8 times, and what did he finish? He finished 6 of 10 from the free throw line after 2 for 2 in that first half. So the wall has to be better, stronger, more forceful for Giannis moving forward, because he's good for 35 points per game. He always is. I haven't looked up it lately, but last year before the playoff series, he was averaging like 50 points per game against the Pacers. Didn't he have a 65, I want to say? Something close to that. A career high against the Pacers. Game ball gate was part of that. He's just been dominant against the Pacers because they don't have anyone that truly matches up well with Giannis. The good news for the Bucks tonight was they got some additional help. It was Brook Lopez early on in the game, knocking down a couple of threes. How about Kuzma? He blew his first couple of layups. And this was after he had a horrendous first game, but finished with 12 points. I think he had 8 of those in the third quarter. He was strong there. And then in that fourth quarter, it was Giannis along with Bobby Portis teaming up for 21 of their 28 fourth quarter points. Just quite not enough there as the Pacers were able to prevail. But the Pacers were lucky because this one nearly slipped past them because of those middle 2 quarters in particular. Then they hit that drought with about the 5:40 mark for the next 3 minutes. It was a 13-zip run. They weren't getting stops. They weren't getting rebounds, and those second chance opportunities nearly cost them as the Bucks outscored the Pacers in second chance opportunities. They had 12 offensive rebounds. That's a key stat to take a look at. Both teams shot it solid from outside, as I suspected. The Bucks were not going to shoot it 24% from three-point range once again. They were better than that here tonight at 40%. And I thought was also interesting is that 2-3 zone, and the Bucks went to that so early. They went to it 3 minutes into the game after the Pacers jumped out to an 8-0 lead, and I think it was 16-8 as well. But I don't remember seeing a ton of it in the second half. I don't. So they did get out of that. They leaned on Bobby Portis over Lopez later in the game because Portis was having an incredible game, just knocking down all those threes. He drilled 6 of their 14 3-pointers and finished the night. Bobby Portis did with 28 points off the bench. Anyone else have any other questions or things you want me to point out, explain, or get into? A couple other things I do want to point out. Lance Stevenson was there. Reggie Wayne of the Colts was there. Drew Hanlon, who's known to train a lot of players around the league, including Halliburton. Well, he was sitting in Halliburton's seats with the parents down there, so that was notable. Knowing Drew was in town yesterday, I had no doubt that Tyrese was going to have a solid game. He always seems to. He always seems to get that motivation. Then we saw that Athletic story come out, call him the most overrated player. I don't even like the small sample size, right? It was like 9 players total. But anyway, to that point, you knew Ty was going to answer and respond with a big game tonight. No, he's not going to erupt for 45 points, not in this. But for him to come out, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists, exactly what he needed to do to help the Pacers lead this one to a win. Also, much of the Fever roster is there, as many of them have made their way back into town, getting ready for the start of training camp coming up Sunday. And I thought it was cool during a timeout, middle of the second quarter, they all came out, were given T-shirts and threw them into the crowd. Great way to market the team this upcoming season, even though now, because of Caitlin, this is the one team that doesn't need any marketing. They have all the ticket sales. They all have the online views. A massive fan base, even bigger than the Pacers, because of Caitlin Clark. And so it's cool to see Caitlin, Aaliyah, Kelsey Mitchell and company all there tonight, seeing the game and seeing what that atmosphere is for many of the team, because at least 10 of 15 players in camp are new, just 5 returning players. So for many of them, they had never experienced this building full, except I guess a handful of them when they came here and played the Fever last year. Grover Stewart was there, but not put on the screen. Saw him on the way out. Good note. Appreciate that. I'm always sure at my column at the buzzer to talk about who's there for fans that are wondering. And I mentioned Lance Stevenson. I mentioned how he was working with the team and signing autographs before the game on the concourse for fans, which is pretty cool. Everyone gave out rally towels. Why are we still doing rally towels, by the way? Does anyone run a rally towel, or am I alone here? Just a random thought I had is not only did they give them out today, but they didn't really tease it. Didn't put out info about it for fans until midday. I think you got to give fans at least a day to get excited about what's to come and to preview it. Why not? What are we doing? Again, just my random thoughts. Is anyone underperforming on the Pacers roster in these 2 games? Not necessarily. I think everyone right now is starring in their role. I really do. And so whatever is asked of them, and that's the good thing here, right? So like Jarris Walker played 11 minutes tonight. He played much better, I thought, in the last game, but I wouldn't say he's underperformed by any means. He finished with 3 points, 4 rebounds, tried to make the most of his time. I would like to see a little bit more from TJ McConnell. That's one guy that comes to mind. I'd like to see a little bit more of a burst from him. He had 6 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, though, right? It didn't feel like he had that impact that the numbers say he did. I think part of that's the defensive matchup that really stands up, the quickness and sometimes getting beat by his opponent, depending on who that is, stands out. And then Thomas Bryant, I'm not sure he has a real place in this series, but I don't know if that's underperforming or more just matchup related. I think more than anything, it's not like for the Bucks, you would say Kyle Kuzma, right? Until tonight, like utterly underperforming the last game. I don't think that's the case for the Pacers. For the Bucks, I'd throw Kevin Porter Jr. there. Only played 15 minutes, scored 9 points. He's a guy that I thought would do a much better job defensively, especially on Tyrese, and score 15 points per game, but he has not done that. I did not understand why the Bucks threw Kyle Kuzma at Halliburton, because I think it was in the third quarter, he just kept attacking that matchup and felt like he scored 3 or 4 times in a row or dished out, like just had so much success. So that one surprised me. Bob says, was Stephanie White there? I'm not certain. I did not see, but I do not believe so. My understanding is she arrives to town for good this season coming up tomorrow. So my understanding is she was not there, but I do not know for certain. Thanks for checking on that as well. Wow, it's already been 40 minutes. Holy heck. We are rolling here on the Fieldhouse Files post-game show. I appreciate everybody tuning in here after the Pacers Game 2 win. I'm sure a lot of you Pacer fans are fired up and excited to see this positive momentum for the Pacers to handle their business. 2 sellout environments at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, 17,274. And then more than that, everybody just played well. From the Pacers standpoint. Certainly times in the game when there were letdowns and times when not everything went smoothly. But as a whole, look, they led the entire game. As one of the listeners here said earlier, it was a relatively stress-free game until about 5 minutes left when the Pacers had that dry spell and the Bucks went on that 13-0 run. And so I think the Pacers have to appreciate where they're at. They recognize, hey, look, they made all 19 free throws, 19 for 19. Let's not underplay that. They had kept their turnovers to just 8 for the second consecutive game. And by the way, Tyrese with 3 of those. That's highly unusual. And you still ended up winning by 8 points here. And you overcame those early turnovers too, by the way, because he picked up a couple of them early on there in the game. So that's a positive. They got to figure out how to slow Portis a little bit better. I thought defense was not as solid there late in the game. They got away from what had worked. The offensive rebounds were costly and nearly cost them the game. That's something they can improve upon. And then I like the fact that, Siakam of all players is just the quietest producer I think I can remember in Pacers history here recently, right? Like, it feel like he didn't make an impact until that second half, but then it loomed large. He made the game-changing three-pointer after the Bucks got to within 2. And then guess what? He turned out to be the Pacers' top scorer and one of 2 players finishing with a double-double. 24 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals in 34 minutes of work. Like, he's just such a professional, quietly goes about his business, doesn't cause chaos. I would love to know why he got a double technical there for something he said or did as a little maybe tangle up perhaps there with Portis. Not so sure. But it was weird to see him get a technical. I want to give Miles Turner credit because during both of those, not even altercations, whatever you want to call them, dust ups, he was the old man in the room. He was the guy separating everybody. He had maintained his composure. He was trying to get guys to refocus here because, again, I thought both teams put too much emphasis into officiating and to talking trash, and maybe that caused both teams to lose focus a little bit later on in the game because that absolutely wears on you. It really does. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up. It's late into the evening, and more than that, I've already gone 40-plus minutes here with this live post-game show. If anyone wants to get in one final comment or question, happy to get into it, but I appreciate everyone joining me here live on YouTube or listening on the podcast to this post-game show. Game 3 coming up Friday. That's an 8 p.m. Eastern time tip, and then how about Game 4? You aren't going to be excited about this one. It's not only on a Sunday, but it's 9:30 Eastern time. It's 8:30 local up there in Milwaukee, but that is a late one. I feel bad for those kids that, anyone in middle school and below is already in bed by 9:30. That's a tough one. And anyone maybe working a true, 8 to 5 job. I fortunately don't. I'm a night owl, and so it's no problem for me. I didn't like the 1:00 game, but I do appreciate everyone jumping on with me. A lot of comments and thoughts to come from this one. I wrote my quick story as usual at fieldhousefiles.com. Wanted to jump on live here. Again, this will go on the podcast, and I'll have a lot more coverage at fieldhousefiles.com in the coming days. Thanks again for everybody listening. This one follows the Pacers 123-115 Game 2 win over the Milwaukee Bucks. And it all continues on Friday night in Milwaukee. Thanks for joining, and I will talk to you all again soon.